James Boyes is a visiting senior research fellow at King's College in London and an expert on US foreign policy. He joins me now live from London. James, speaking to Bob Ayres earlier on the phone about this story, he said this is certainly not something we should be surprised by. He said this has happened throughout history by any country that has an intelligence service. He's right, isn't he?
He is, Stephen. Good to speak to you as always. There's no doubt about it that the only thing we should be surprised about in this story is that anyone is surprised. Obviously, all nations spy upon one another, and no nation is going to admit to it at any point. You'll hear David Cameron speaking today, for example, saying he's not going to comment upon this. All nations will express indignation at catching anybody in the process of this whilst denying they have anything to do with it themselves. So there is a bit of a game of show and tell going on here, shall we say.
So, in summary, do you think it's basically a storm in a microdot?
Well, it's just another embarrassing incident which has come out of this continuing series of whistleblower incidents that we've seen emerging over the last couple of years, whether it's this latest round or the previous round we saw a few years ago, which is still going on, of course, with Julian Assange locked up here in the Ecuadorian embassy. There's no doubt about it that it is a storm in the teacup. It will blow over. All agencies are involved in this. All nations spy upon each other.
Okay, so I was making light of it. Perhaps what is more serious when we talk about hacking, and we shouldn't really treat hacking in the same way, should we? And cyber attacks, because they are far more public and perhaps more damaging.
Well, it's important to recognise, of course, that there is a reason that nations spend vast fortunes upon intelligence services. They are there to both be proactive and reactive. They are there to engage in spying and espionage against other nations, to collect data, to prevent incidents from occurring, but also, on that darker side that you allude to enact policy, to go out and prevent other nations who may well be adversaries now or tomorrow from gaining technology which could be used against the home country. This is all about national interest, of course, Stephen, and each country has its own national interest, which may very well be in direct opposition to other nations' national interest. And it depends very much upon which side of that divide you sit as to how you see today's incidents.
And nobody's better at protecting their national interests than the Americans. We have this alleged special relationship. Does that extend to the intelligence services?
Well, it's important to recognise, of course, that in the post-World War II era, when America was putting together its national security strategy operations, the CIA, for example, it was to Great Britain that they looked for inspiration. So it's no surprise that we have a special relationship which is founded in great part on our intelligence communities, because their CIA, their national security agencies, are based upon MI6 and GCHQ here in London. So we do have a close relationship. Something called the Five Eyes group of Britain, United States, Canada, New Zealand and Australia have an agreement that we shouldn't be spying upon one another, but be under no illusions. When it comes to national interests, all bets are off and all nations will engage in espionage against one another if it's believed to be in their national interest to do so.
Exactly. Dr. James Boyes, great to get your insights as always.
Thank you, Steve.